Welcome to Exploring Boys Education, a regular podcast produced by the International Boys Schools Coalition, in which we have conversations about educating boys and the many issues that impact and affect boys' schools and teachers of boys. Exploring Boys Education is hosted by me, Bruce Collins. I am the IBSC's Director of Membership Engagement. In this, the second episode of Exploring Boys Education, we'll get some insights into the IBSC Action Research Program, a groundbreaking global professional development opportunity for teachers and administrators in boys' schools.
I took part in Action Research a couple of years ago, and it was the most significant and transformative professional development opportunity that I've ever been engaged in.
The most valuable part of Action Research for me was being part of a team. So after the 2-year process was finished, I was still able to message the people in my team all around the world to ask them questions about my classroom, continuing research, and to hear about what's going on with them in their classrooms all around the world.
We from Harrow send members of staff to do the action research with the IBSC every year, and we encourage our staff to actually talk to the boys about it and to allow them to be part of that journey. And it's really beneficial because the boys then realise that we are lifelong learners, that we are keen on developing ourselves, that we aren't resting on our laurels.
To get more insights into the IBSC Action Research Program, we'll be talking in today's episode to Margot Long and her team of advisors.
Teachers are inspired through this work to take it further. And so whether that is an advanced degree, whether that is presenting your project at a conference or, getting it published in a scholarly journal. And so I think that it really lights a little fire in us to continue that work.
The IBSC team are just an amazing group of experts in genuine action research processes, and working with you all over the 18 months has been a rewarding and enriching experience.
I was privileged enough to be able to catch up with the IBSC Action Research Advisor team when we were all together in Montreal for the IBSC's annual conference. So without further ado, let's catch up with them and hear what they have to say about this incredible development opportunity. I have with me Dr. Di Laycock, who is the Head of Information Services at the King's School in Sydney, Australia, and also Margot Long, who is the Deputy Head of Academics and Staff Learning at St. John's Preparatory School in Johannesburg, South Africa. Margot is currently the Program Coordinator for the IBSC Action Research Program, which is a position Di held for many years. Both are stalwarts of our Action Research Program. Margot is going to introduce the others in the room in a bit, but first I just want to get some insight into Action Research, and in particular the wonderful teacher-led Action Research Program offered annually by the IBSC. So Di, let's start with you, and by way of introduction, maybe you could share how you first got involved in IBSC Action Research.
My Action Research journey has been a very long one. So I started in 2005 as one of 7 researchers on the very first cohort of the IBSC Action Research Program. At the time, Mary Gautier from Upper Canada College was the team leader. I then became Mary's apprentice for a year and then stepped into her shoes in 2007. As the program grew, the number of teams grew, as did the number of team leaders. And in 2012, I stopped leading the team to actually take over coordination. In 2016, I handed over the coordinator's reins to Margot, but I stayed on as the editor of the research reports and posters. It's very hard to step away completely from such a fantastic program. The team leaders now call me the Sabre.
The Sabre, that's quite an interesting name. Di, why are you called the Sabre?
Well, Bruce, you know that teachers really like to talk a lot and they like to write a lot. And we do have limits on how long the reports can be, so someone has to sort of step in and actually cut back a lot of the reports so that they're of a readable length. So I guess I do the editing and proofing, and in the process try and bring them all back to the required length that we ask of the researchers.
That's great, Di. Also, what fascinates me is your action research project spurred a love of learning in you, and you went on to actually study further, and those studies were birthed from your action research.
Yeah, most certainly. So after my action research project, lots and lots of doors opened. I was able to speak at conferences, head overseas to do some presentations, but I think what was really lacking was some sort of credibility to put behind those presentations and articles. So I could see the value of research. The action research really sort of gave me a spark, I guess, that needed feeding. So I decided to enrol in a doctoral program. And so 9 years later, in 2018, I finally graduated with a degree as Doctor of Education. But the topic I chose for my doctorate sort of reflected what I'd done in my action research program. So the topic itself had sort of been a spark as well.
That's amazing to hear, and I think maybe that's something to which other researchers can aspire to. You've given us a little bit of a history of the Action Research Program, but I'm quite keen to hear how many researchers have graduated from the program. What's the sort of global reach of this amazing endeavour?
We've had 15 cohorts go through the program, and they've comprised 40 teams. Those teams have had researchers from over 12 countries, and to date we've had something like 420 researchers graduate.
Margot, you've also had quite an interesting action research journey. How did you end up being what we call the fearless leader of this program?
Thanks, Bruce. I started in 2007 as part of the team looking at positive relationships. I completed a project on bullying at my school, and Di obviously was my team advisor. I then went on to become a team advisor in 2008, so completing 8 cycles in that role now. And finally taking over from Di as program coordinator in 2016. So this is my 4th cycle in that role 12 years later.
It's clearly a very successful program. What makes it such a wonderful program for teachers from around the world to be a part of?
So that's an interesting question, Bruce, because it's a program that's run by teachers for teachers, but I think it's all about the professional learning, and there's learning on so many levels in the program. We have a global collaboration, and being part of an online community in itself is a very rich experience. But with that comes a global confidence, looking at schools around the world and realizing that while we're all different, we've all got so much in common. There's technological research as people learn the new technologies that we use to communicate. There's research knowledge of the actual topic that people are working with. But I think more important than all of that is it's the relationships that are formed in this program that lie at the heart of its success. And those relationships are between the team advisors themselves, between the team advisors and their researchers, and then the researchers form such close bonds through the course of the 18 months that they spend working together. That they link up whenever they have the opportunity, and I think it extends into a global family.
I thoroughly enjoyed my participation in action research. It was an incredibly enriching experience for me, not only as a teacher but as an individual as well. I think it's actually really rekindled a love for doing what I do, and ultimately it's the start of my journey of lifelong learning.
Applications for the latest round of IBSC Action Research have just opened up. The topic for the 2020-2021 IBSC Action Research Program is Boys and Technology, New Horizons, New Challenges, New Learning. I'll share a little bit more about the new topic later on in this episode. But if you'd like to apply, head to our website www.theibsc.org and click on the Teaching and Learning tab. Under that tab, you will find details about how to get involved in this wonderful program. In Montreal, I also managed to talk to the team advisors for this wonderful program, but I'm going to let Margot introduce them.
We have Laura Sabo on the team. She is the lower school librarian at St. Christopher's in Richmond, Virginia. Trish Sislak is head of libraries at Crescent School in Toronto. Janet Lien is Director of Enrollment at the Browning School in New York. And a new advisor on the team is Polly Higgins, who's head of Upper School at King Edward in Birmingham.
Well, welcome to the 4 of you. You clearly keep this program running. And I'd like to, just like we've done with Di and Margot, focus on your action research journeys, because For me, really, the power of this program rests largely on all of your capable shoulders. And the fact that you've been through this process, I think, makes it so much easier for researchers to produce research projects of which they can be proud. So we're going to start with the newest member of the team, which is Polly. Tell us a little bit about your action research project.
The year I did my action research project, the subject was adaptability, and I'm a drama teacher, and I was wanting to see whether I could improve the way the boys reflected in order to improve their devising drama in class. Because in written reflection, they tended to just dash things off, not really think about it. So I did a project where we got rid of the exercise books and they used digital devices to do oral or video reflections, and it was transformative. It was an amazing experience, to the extent that we've now rolled it out across the entire year group, and we're using video reflection in lots of different ways across the whole department.
Really, that's part of the power of the program, isn't it? That it has impact beyond your project, possibly in a school.
And I think, one of the things was it was quite a bold step to say, right, we're going to get rid of the exercise books and not use that very traditional method. And, I was worried that the boys would, maybe they'd just be on their phones tweeting or doing Snapchat or what have you. But they loved it, and they do. Well, actually, no, they didn't love it to begin with. They found it quite challenging, but they started to love it, and they really opened up and were very kind of honest in their responses.
What would your advice be for action researchers from someone who has completed a project recently?
I think it's really important that you embrace the process fully. You definitely get out of it what you put into it, and I really did embrace it. I enjoyed it so much. I hadn't really done any research before, and I just found it so fascinating. I enjoyed the reading. I didn't enjoy writing the lit review very much, but we all know. But I really enjoyed doing all the reading for it, and it invigorated my teaching enormously, but also just being able to see the boys kind of in how it enhanced the learning. So I think that's important. I think choosing something that you don't know the answer to. I think it's tempting to think, I'll research something that I'm already doing, but actually being bold and trying to do something that you don't know what's going to happen, that's exciting.
Laura and Trish, tell us a little bit about your research journeys and how you came to be involved in a deeper level. Well, let's start with you, Trish.
Great. I joined in the program in 2010 in Philadelphia, and I was part of, actually I think a bit of a unique year, because we had 3 different topics running between libraries, languages, and leadership. So I was on the library team, and my project centered around the introduction of audiobooks as an option for boys to encourage them to read more. We know that reading habits fall off for boys, usually in the middle school years. And so I introduced audiobooks into the library at Crescent, and to see what would happen. And despite a lot of them thinking that listening didn't count, my research was actually really valuable to find out that boys were able to actually finish a book. And that was really rewarding, not only for me, but for the boys as well. And to add another layer to a reading culture in a boys' school. So that was really powerful, and it did guide a lot of our decisions that I made within our lower school library as well in future years. So that for me was really powerful. And in that same year, I was actually my research report was actually turned into an article and published in an Australian library journal, and that was very rewarding and a really exciting sort of extra layer as an opportunity to actually get published in a journal for other people to read about the research as well.
And I mean, we actually encourage people to do that, don't we?
Yeah.
I mean, to take it beyond just this program and to be published elsewhere or present elsewhere or do other things.
And then I presented my findings in 2011, and then the call came, and I was asked to join in as an advisor team. And so I started my journey in 2012 with Laura on my team as one of my researchers.
Yes, I was so lucky.
And we've just been going strong ever since, and it's been fabulous.
Trish has alluded to your journey and how it started.
Nice segue.
Laura.
So yes, so for me it was 2012, same year as you, Bruce. We were part of the same cohort. The theme was creativity through digital technologies. So at the time I was an instructional technologist, and I worked with a group of 5th grade boys, and they created social awareness posters. I mean, it was an amazing experience. We were in Melbourne for that conference, and I presented at my own school, St. Christopher's, the next July, which was wonderful. And just like Trish, I loved that experience. I completely embraced it, and I got the call the next year. And so this will be my 6th year. And so, I've loved, as we've talked about, the relationships with this advisory team, but also each of the cohorts. And those are long-lasting relationships. And not to mention how much I'm learning with each topic. And so that too has kind of trickled into my own school, because now I also get to coach a team of faculty members doing action research projects at my own school. So
I think a lot of people's careers are almost defined by their journey through action research.
Yes, yes, it does have
I think
an
clearly
impact.
from what you have shared, all of you, that's true. But who benefits most from this? Is it the school? Is it the researcher? Is it the team advisor group?
That is a very difficult question, Bruce. My first thought is the teacher. And, just because I know how it changed the way I teach, and I hear it over and over again. I mean, I think as educators, we're all reflective, but to learn how to immerse yourself in the literature when you want to try something new, how to collect evidence, and, get the boys' voices as we are trying new things. I think it just changes. And so many teachers have gone on to maybe do informal news cycles of research. It just changes the way we teach. But then, of course, that affects the boys, because it's, why do we do this? We're, learning best practices for teaching boys. So I think, as you said, that it's good for the school, it's good for the teacher, it's good for, ultimately, it's for the boys.
Yeah, I suppose that's why we believe in this program so much, is its reach is far.
Yes.
So those benefits, for you, what are those, Trish?
Well, it's true. We do have our own term we've made up called boyology, which lives and breathes through every one of our projects. And we really work on directing our researchers to find that elusive piece that really ties to the boys, so that we can enhance what we're doing with our boys. So, it really does have a really beautiful trickle-down effect in terms of what the benefits are. One that really struck with me is when you need to rely on the boys to be part and be co-researchers with you, that relational moment with the boys is very profound. And when you say to them, you're part of a global research project and what you say matters, it changes how you interact with the boys, and they believe in you and they trust you. And that's probably one of the most profound things we can do as teachers in boys' schools, that we can build those relationships with them. So that, for me, has always been really great. With our next topic being student agency, it fits so perfectly well with action research, because we're going to be relying on the boys to play a big part in all of the projects that are going to be upcoming.
I was initially attracted to the Action Research Project as the opportunity to learn how to do action research properly. And now have the satisfaction of saying that I've learnt so much in working with you and the IBSC Action Research team and our group, the Raconteurs. You took me out of my comfort zone, you demanded quality action research, and you provided amazing support so that I could achieve it.
Janet Leanne from the Browning School takes the conversation further.
So I participated in an action research project from 2015 to 2016, and the topic that year was global citizenship. We had focused the theme on the various United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, and the topic I chose for my project was poverty. And I worked with 12th grade boys at our school. My thinking was that I felt that while students, especially in America, may have a understanding about poverty globally or even in developing nations, they may actually have less of a sense as to poverty as it exists in the United States. And so we examined the working poor in America and all the factors that result in poverty in the U.S. I asked the boys to take on the profile of a family making minimum wage, and they were tasked with determining the family budget based on existing conditions in New York City. And it was a very powerful experience for me, and I'm delighted to still be a part of the Action Research family.
If listeners were to sign up for the next round of the IBSC Action Research Program, clearly this seems like a big task. It seems like a lot of work to do, an extra layer on top of what you're doing anyway as a teacher. What sort of support and training do researchers get in order to produce successful projects?
So incoming researchers can expect to receive, 2 full days of training where we go over various components of action research and we guide researchers in how to shape their work. Over the course of 2 days, we work on how to develop good research questions because that really anchors the work ahead. We examine existing literature or even discuss how to examine existing literature, develop methods of data collection, and how we then go about analyzing that. There is a bit of overlap during the training days between incoming and outgoing teams, and that allows researchers who are just beginning their journey to glean from the experience of those who have just come through it, and that can also be a really powerful experience for researchers. And then the role of us as advisors, we're not here for 2 days and then we say, see you later, good luck. We're with you every step of the way. We check in with our teams. We certainly reach out ahead of due dates. We structure the due dates so that we hope it's a manageable stream of work for our researchers. And we help troubleshoot. We help to encourage, to cheerlead, to advocate where necessary. We're with you.
Laycock shares some insights about the rigor of action research.
If you read the literature, often there's a certain suspicion about research conducted by teachers. It's viewed on maybe as sort of lesser credibility than some of the academic research that you see. So I think it is really important that the IBSC present its research as very rigorous, trustworthy, etc. After all, we're hoping that other people will take on the idea of doing research. We'd like to think that there's a transferability element to the projects that the researchers do, and if that's going to be the case, then it has to be established that those projects are rigorous. So, look, I think the way that we achieve that is that we certainly, as Janet's already said, we provide them with some really rigorous face-to-face training where we go through the steps of the action research process. But also, and the ongoing support, there's always someone available to help with questions, etc. But the other thing I think is that the report that the researchers produce is actually sort of a mini thesis in a way. So it actually replicates a lot of academic research that you'll read. It has a literature review. It's very transparent in the process that's presented. So I think through that, people can actually see how the research was conducted, how the data's been analysed, etc. So I think all of that adds to the rigour of the program.
An IBSC Action Research project might very well be daunting. I asked Trish Sislak to share with us what a typical project might look like.
I think the really important starting point is an intuition towards the topic. So the fall before, like last fall in 2018, Margot wrote up a description of what the student agency topic. And in your own gut as a teacher, you'll have a drive to a certain topic. So when you read the description of what's coming, that intuition is going to sort of create a spark to sort of intentionally start to have a really hard look at something in your practice. So I think that intuition piece is really important, and that's really up to people applying to the program to decide, is this my topic? Because you're going to have to live with it for 18 months. And so that's a really important part, to come in with something that you could see in your practice that needs an improvement. And from there, we actually have set templates and set due dates to help people go through. And one of the most important ones is the research plan. And really, it's almost a bit of if it's a backward design approach. So we try to give a big sort of overall view of it and really start to think of all the moving parts and to establish a sense of where this project might land. So those templates are really important for making sure we hit all of the essential elements of the project. And we will do a lit review, and they have to understand how to collect data and analyze it, draw out conclusions, and come away with a whole sense of that they felt the impact of whatever that action is on their practice with their boys.
It seems like quite a commitment though, Polly. How do successful researchers manage that load and commitment, would you say?
I mean, it is a commitment. There's no getting away from that. And I think with the very busy lives of a full-time school worker, teacher, it is something you've got to bear in mind. I mean, the way I did it, I set aside set time every week. That was my action research time. And I was very lucky. My school were incredibly supportive. So they actually blocked off time for me. I learned very quickly that I had to honour that time, because it's very easy to let other things get in there. But if you do that, you can keep on top of it, and it's manageable.
So I suppose it's just being intentional, knowing that you're part of this thing for 18 months, and like what you say about intentionally setting time aside and just sticking to that.
It's a commitment. And I think as well, you need time to really think about what, with the data, what you are seeing and what you are collecting, and to try and be as open as possible with that you're not trying to drive a particular bias or drive a particular answer to your research question, if you like. So you do need to spend that time. You can't just dash it off, and it's important.
Janet, we spoke earlier a little bit about benefits of the program, but there has to be a positive spin-off here for schools who have researchers in the program.
Yeah, I as I thought through how to answer this question, I had to reflect on my own experience. So I'll start by speaking for myself and my own action research journey. The key to action research is that teachers are actively conducting the research and are participants themselves. So even when I was seeking to answer my own research question, I was tasked with examining my own teaching practice and whether I was setting the boys up to benefit from the activity itself. The reflection process to me isn't always available to teachers when they're under the relentlessness of the academic year, right? The ups and downs of the academic year. But to carve out that time and space, as Polly was talking about, to immerse yourself in active reflection, I think that makes better teachers for all of us. And Laura had touched on this as well. Our boys stand to benefit. So I've mentioned already that I think action research increases teacher engagement. It helps teachers rediscover or fine-tune their sense of purpose. I myself loved meeting educators from all over the world, and teachers in boys' schools, no less. Our schools are also different, but when you're meeting colleagues from around the world, all of whom are dedicated to the service of teaching boys, there is something that is deeply satisfying about that process, as well as inspiring, really. Teachers who engage in action research have the opportunity to develop a habit of reflection and fine-tuning in their own teaching practices, even after their action research is complete. So I think that this process continues to iterate itself even after you're done with all of the requirements of participating with the IBSC. And then I do think that some of our schools have also developed their own versions of action research. Laura touched on that as something that's happening at St. Christopher's. I know that many of us are looking into ways to kind of get action research in as a regular practice for teachers in our schools. And I think that certainly whenever teachers get to share their work with their colleagues, we have a chance to help one another learn, to develop projects at our school. So something that we do ask our researchers to do is to find opportunities to share their own action research work with their colleagues at schools, and hopefully that will spark other people's interest in the project.
One of the benefits of being an IBSC member school is that one has access to all the wonderful resources on our website. One of the resources available to member schools is a repository of all the IBSC Action Research reports ever written. Margot Long is particularly excited about the latest set of reports.
So we chose the story because we felt that storytelling's been around for a really long time as a useful tool, and it's a way that people use to make sense of the world around them. Stories connect us to one another, and they help us learn about our history and our ancestors. Several of the projects pursued that thread, looking at the history of alumni in their schools and in their communities. But also through telling your own story, you learn how to transform yourself and you define your own identity. So some of the projects looked at boys telling their stories in different formats and the learning that came from that. And then probably the third component was that when you listen to other people's stories, you develop empathy. And perhaps a tolerance of difference and otherness. And there were some absolutely wonderful projects in this cycle looking at the need to recognize difference and celebrate it in our communities.
Some amazing projects, really.
Some absolutely beautiful projects. I really can't wait for them to be published on the website and for everyone to be able to read them.
At the IBSC annual conference in Montreal, we announced the 2019 IBSC Action Research Award winners. We'd like to congratulate again Peter Bonds from the Blue Ridge School and James Kearney from Scotch College for winning the 2019 Action Research Award. Both of them completed highly innovative action research projects that make a valuable contribution to the IBSC Action Research community. We were able to talk to them about their experience of IBSC Action Research. Maybe, Pete, we can start with you. What were some of your challenges and highlights as you went through this process?
Yeah, it was an incredible process. This really was one of the most rewarding things that I've done professionally in my 10 years as a teacher. I guess the biggest challenge is it's a substantial time commitment. It's a fair amount of work, especially as a faculty member at a boarding school where you're teaching and coaching and advising and doing duty on weeknights and weekends. Adding one more thing to your plate can be a lot, but if you make time every week and you kind of allocate some time for it, it really turned out to be quite manageable.
What about you? Some of the challenges, James?
Yeah, same for me, just with the timing. Being in the southern hemisphere, so I'm at a school down in Melbourne, Australia, just the timing of the project meant that I had to do most of my stuff in our term 3, so from July to September. And so I had a fairly condensed amount of time to try and organise things, and particularly that space between the conference last year where we were sort of formulating our question to sort of not long after that where we had to kind of outline our entire research plan. That was quite a lot of thinking and work to try and piece together what that was eventually going to look like. But then for me, it kind of freed up a lot after that. I had all my data in by the end of September, and so it was a bit more leisurely after that.
And the highlights for you, did they outweigh the...
Oh, definitely. And I think that the real highlight for me has been being able to get to know other teachers from other countries around the world and to get to spend some time not only just talking about their projects but getting to know what their school life is like, getting to know them sort of as colleagues but also as friends over the course of the process.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great thing about the process, isn't it?
And you really start to realize that you're part of such a big community, an international group of people engaged in the same work that you are. I think a lot of times, it can feel like you're in your silo. It's a little bit lonely sometimes at your school. And then you come to an event like this and you realize there's people from, your country, but all over the world engaged in the same kind of work. And the conversations and the ideas I came back to my school with have been just invaluable.
What advice would you give current researchers in this program as well as those who are thinking about applying?
Yeah, absolutely apply. Definitely apply. It's a fantastic experience. My advice, I guess, would just be to pick a topic that you're really interested in, something that you are curious about, something that you are passionate about, something that you might already be working on in your practice, but something that would benefit from a more formal, structured study. You spend a lot of time with the topic that you pick. You spend a lot of time with the question that you asked and the data that you've collected. So if you don't really love it and enjoy it, you're going to get tired of it.
Yeah, I'd say at the initial stages of applying for the program, keep an open mind as to what your topic might be, because I know that between my initial application and the time that I actually finalised my project, they were completely different things. And also to just think about the scope of what you're taking on. In my experience last year, watching the presentations from last year's cohort and talking to some of the researchers from this year just in the last couple of days, the projects that have been the most successful have been the simplest, where there has been a very specific point of change that they've made to their teaching practice, and they've been able to really focus in on that rather than trying to achieve too much in the time that they have.
And definitely talk to the people at your school who have done it, and if no one at your school has done it, reach out to the folks who run the program. They're amazing, very, very kind people who will answer any question you possibly have.
Finally, in wrapping this up, it's been great to speak to the two of you, but in terms of your own, you alluded to it earlier, Pete, your own professional development as a teacher, this was significant. Why was it so significant for you?
It was so significant for me because, I was able to research a part of my practice that I've been thinking about and wondering about for a while, but I don't know that if on my own I would have really studied in such a structured way this part of my practice. It probably would have just been something that stayed in the back of my mind, and I wouldn't have made the time to really think about, how I teach history, which was a key part of my project. And so I've benefited from the structure, having to study this, having to work with data, having to really reflect and think about what I do in a way that I just don't think I would have done without this program.
Yeah, it was the same for me. Obviously, in our lives as teachers, we're doing the sorts of things that we do in the Action Research Program on a really informal level. So every day we're identifying something that we want our students to be able to do or to do differently. We're putting in place a course of action to try and achieve that outcome. We're looking at evidence along the way, but to do it in a much more structured, rigorous format has been quite rewarding, and to be able to know that you're drawing on perhaps more literature than you would in your day-to-day teaching practice. You're able to explore things in a lot more depth, and it's perhaps just a bit more concrete and by the end of the process we've got a clearer outcome and clearer reasons why we've got that outcome and clearer directions to go afterwards.
The current cohort of IBSC Action researchers have projects that are in full swing. They started in February with some training and connection opportunities, met together at the IBSC annual conference in Montreal, and are currently doing their literature reviews and research plans. We asked Laura Sabo to give us more information about this current round of IBSC Action Research.
The theme is developing agency, boy, voice, and choice. And so when we're talking about student agency, we're talking about purposeful initiative. Teachers who are doing projects within this cycle might be trying to find out what happens when students choose their own course of action, whether that means it could be related to their goals, it could be related to a learning topic, the activities that they want to pursue, how they are going to be assessed. It's important because agency is a life skill. And I really, truly, I think we all know that when our boys are encouraged to ask their own deep questions, to problem solve, to collaborate and make their own decisions, we're really providing them with the tools they need to pursue lifelong learning.
If you've been inspired or excited by anything you've heard in this episode, I would encourage you to apply for the 2020-2021 IBSC Action Research Project. Boys and Technology, New Horizons, New Challenges, New Learning. Educational technology has certainly shaped learning for millennia, from the invention of the first wax tablets to the technology we use today. Technology promotes flexible, active, and differentiated learning and empowers students to take control of their learning. But while it offers many benefits, we must also think critically before embracing all it offers. IBSC invites teachers to undertake action research exploring the impact of new and emerging technologies on teaching and learning in boys' schools. If this is a topic that really excites you, why not visit www.theibsc.org and investigate how you can be a part of the next IBSC Action Research cohort.
Someone shared today, I won't mention who it is, but what did he say? He said the conference is?
He regards it as an action research conference with a few invited guests.
Well, there we go, the annual...
Needless to say, he is a past action researcher.
Yeah, there we go.
2 times.
Yeah.
He did it twice.
As you've listened to today's episode, I'm sure you've picked up on the passion of this team of action research advisors. The IBSC is grateful to Margot, Laura, Trish, Polly, Janet, and Di for all the hard work they do to make this program a roaring success. As we close today's episode, just a reminder that you can gain access to a ton of amazing resources on our website, www.theibsc.org. Lastly, If you'd like to access archived episodes of this podcast, you can do so on your favorite podcast app just by searching for Exploring Boys Education. Alternatively, visit the archive podcast page on our website and click on the links that appear there. Please share your feedback on these episodes with us. You can email us on ibsc@theibsc.org. So until the next episode of Exploring Boys Education, from me, Bruce Collins, goodbye.